Okay, guys, since we didn't get to meet because GoToMeeting is going crazy, I'm just going to run through a few of the things that we would have done. But if you might have already done this already. So I was going to go through the vocabulary words that are for chapters 1 through 5 of Mr. Popper's Penguin. So the first one is hastily. Okay, and hastily means in a fast way. And usually if you're doing something hastily, it's not good. Like, it's sometimes good to do things quickly, but if people say you're being hasty, that usually means you're doing them too fast. This word is expedition, and that is a long journey. Spectacles, and that means glasses. That's a fancy word for glasses. Stout, we'll see that in our reading, and that means sturdy and strong. Cross, normally when you think of cross, you think of a cross or somebody like crossing their arms, but in this story, the word cross means, oops, I didn't flip it, means mad. Okay, so let's remember that. And toboggan, that's a fun word. And that is a long, narrow sled. So you can see the toboggan here. All right. And this word is plead. And that means to beg. Have you guys ever done that? All right. Let me go back. Bungalow. Okay. Bungalow. Bungalow that's in the first chapter. And that's just a small house or cottage. So it's not a really big house. A bungalow is a small house. Inquisitive. If you are inquisitive, you are somebody who asks questions or is curious. And so we'll see who in our story is inquisitive. This word looks like debris, but it's debris. Okay, it's kind of weird. The I is making an E sound, but that's how you say it. Debris. And say it yourself. And debris is wreckage or rubble. And we talked about on the other group call, if you've ever seen an accident, like on the road or on TV, when you see all the parts of the car like laying in the road, that's called debris. That's what's left over after the accident. All right, and we talked about Mr. Popper's Penguins. Okay, hopefully you guys all have your book. Your book may not look exactly like this. This book is very different from the movie. So if you've seen the movie, it's going to be very different. Also, this book was written a very long time ago. So life, when they're talking, things are a little different. Okay, and we'll kind of discuss that as we go along. All right. If you look at the chapter, these are the chapter names, but if you look at the chapter numbers, they look a little different. Okay, those aren't typical numbers. They're called Roman numerals. Okay, and so when I tell you to write or to read a chapter, so like I'll tell you what the Roman numerals mean. The Roman numeral I, okay, equals 1. Okay, so when you have I, that means 2. I means 3. The Roman numeral V equals 5. Okay, so right here you see we have 5. So this is chapter 5. But when you have IV, okay, that actually equals 4. Because when you have a lesser number, 1, in front of a greater number, 5, you subtract. So it's really 5 minus 1 equals 4. Okay, so IV is 4. Now if the number is on the other side and it's the same or bigger, you're going to add. So if you look right here, VI is going to be 6 because the smaller number in VI, the smaller number is on the right side of the bigger number. So then you would add. Kind of weird. So we have VII, that's 7. VIII, it's going to be 8. Now look right here, we have IX, that's a new one. So X equals 10. And remember, if the smaller number is before the bigger number, you subtract. So IX, the smaller number is before, we're going to subtract. So that's going to equal 9. And when we get to X right here, that's 10. And then we go back to adding because the I is on the other side. So XI is going to be 11. Then XII is going to be 12. XII is going to be 13. XIV is going to be 14, and so on. So that is how our Roman numerals go. So right here we have XV. So X is 10 and V is 5. so that's 15. XVI is going to be 16. XVII is going to be 17. XV, so 10, 5, 1, 1, 1 is going to be 18. Then we have XIX, so we have 10, and then we have 1, and then we have, so these are going to go together, so this is going to be 9. 19, and XX is chapter 10, or chapter 20. Okay, so in this first chapter, or on our call, we would have read chapter 1 together, but I'm guessing you guys have already read chapter 1. So if you have not read chapter 1, I want you to press pause and read chapter 1 and then press play again. Okay, I'm not going to read it for you because I bet most of you have already read it before. So if not, press pause, then press play again. Okay, so in chapter 1, so you shouldn't be listening to this now unless you've already read the chapter. In chapter 1, the main idea is basically learning about who Mr. Popper is. We learned that he lives in Stillwater, that he's a house painter, that he is untidy. Okay, and untidy, tidy means clean, and remember we have the suffix un, it means not, so that means he's not clean, so he's not very tidy. He has a family, he has a wife, and he has kids. And here we can see how he's kind of untidy. See how the wallpaper is sticking to him and all of his things. That he paints houses in the summer and spring, but in the winter, he doesn't. And I'm not sure why they didn't really paint houses or wallpaper them in the winter back then. I can only think maybe because you really needed to keep the windows open when you did that, and obviously you can't keep the windows open in the winter. So I'm thinking that might be why, because remember, this was written a long time ago. Now we paint all year long. We learn here in this part that Mr. Popper is often he loses his train of thought. It says right here he's absent-minded. Absent means you're not there, and your mind means your mind's not there. If you're absent-minded, you're not thinking correctly. And he was absent-minded, hopefully you're remembering, because he was always dreaming about faraway countries. Okay, and he really wants to go on a polar expedition. So those are the main things that we learned about Mr. Popper. So all of our odd chapters, and I know you guys know the odd numbers, so 1, 3, 7, 9, 11, oh, I forgot 5, 13, 15, 17, and 19, because there's only 20 chapters, we are going to write something called a summary. Okay, and that's just a brief description, okay, very brief, of what went on in the chapter. And a summary only includes the most important parts. Okay, so here's what your summary should have. It should be 2 to 5 sentences. And if it's only 2, they should be really, really good long sentences. Okay, it should only tell the main idea of the chapter, not little details. So we're not going to say Mr. Popper had paint stuck to his hat or that he was untidy. We're not going to give the little tiny details, just the big ones. It needs to be written neatly. It needs to contain an illustration, and an illustration means a picture. And you will get 5 points for each illustration and each picture that you have. And so right here is an example of a summary of chapter 1 from a student in years past. So I'm not sure if you can see, if I can make this any bigger for you, but here's their picture, and I really want you to use the whole box. And the picture should have, I should be able to tell the main idea of the chapter just by looking at the picture. Now this one was kind of hard because it really just talked about Mr. Popper. So you could have drawn him dreaming about like polar things, or you could have had a paintbrush in his hand. See, this person only got 4 points out of 5 because maybe they needed a little more detail in their picture. But the chapter, I would always start your chapter with in chapter whatever. So this is chapter 1. So it'd say in chapter 1, Mr. Popper is a house painter who lives in Stillwater with Mrs. Popper, Janie, and Bill. He loves reading about the Arctic and dreamed of being an explorer there. So it didn't give us any of the little details, but we know enough now to go on to chapter 5 and really understand the story. We know who Mr. Popper is, what his job is, where he lives, that he has a family, and what his deepest desire is, which is to go on an expedition of the Arctic. So, and that's only 2 sentences, but there are 2 really good sentences. Okay, here's the summary we wrote on the call this morning. And so it says, in chapter 1, we learned about Mr. Popper. That's a great topic sentence. He was a painter who lived in Stillwater. He had a family. He always thinks about, and actually this should be thought about, he always thought about the Arctic and wanted to go there. So you can copy this one in your Mr. Popper Penguin book, or you copy it in a notebook, or you can copy the one that's in Blackboard, or you can write your own. It's up to you. So, but we will have a summary for every odd chapter. So this chapter 1 would go here, chapter 3 would go over here. Okay, if you decide to just put them in your notebook, just make sure you label which one it is. Okay, so, and you need to write your summaries before you go on to read chapter 2. So the way it goes is read chapter 1, write the summary. Okay, you could draw the illustration later if you wanted. Then read chapter 2. Okay? Today and tomorrow you're going to practice your vocabulary. So we already practiced it for today. If you haven't already, if you listen to this video, you can count that as you have practiced it. On Tuesday, you're going to take a vocabulary quiz. And if you just go right above Monday in Blackboard, you'll see Mr. Popper vocabulary quiz. When you're ready to take it, just click it right there and it will take you to the quiz. Okay? Make sure you write your summary today. And here again is all the good things you need in your summary. Okay? So chapter 1 and 2 should be read today. We also are starting our butterfly unit this week. And so if you have your butterfly journal, and even if you're not getting a butterfly, if you're not getting the butterfly kit, email me today and let me know that, okay? That's okay. I have a different assignment for you, but you need to email me and let me know. So you need to, everybody, even if you're not getting a butterfly kit, should have the butterfly journal printed out, and you put your name here. So this would say like Susan's butterfly kit. And everybody's journal should start with day 1. As soon as you receive your butterflies, or if you already have and didn't start your journal, go back and put day 1 and then draw what it looked like. Draw what the kit looked like. You can draw what the cup looked like. You can draw the tiny little caterpillars. And then you need to write a sentence or 2 about what you saw. Okay? Every couple days, you need to do another one. So maybe this is day 3. Okay? You're going to draw again. And you're going to do that every 2 or 3 days. Or if there's a big change, okay? If all of a sudden your caterpillars get really big, you need to do a journal, okay? Anytime something changes, you need to do a journal or have one every 2 or 3 days or so, okay? Another thing we have this week that's really important is our Native American book project, okay? You guys are going to pick a tribe, and you're probably going to do that tomorrow, and you need to do some research, which is finding information about the tribe. So if you pick the Algonquin Indian tribe, you're going to need to find a map of where they live, pictures and information about their homes, what they ate, what they wore, and then 2 other interesting facts that you should know. And there are some websites in Blackboard to help you find some information. You can go to the library to get books. You can look in your Discovery Education. You can log in and go to search and type in the name of your tribe, and information will come up in there as well. One thing is, after you read or watch a video from your online or offline sources, that means like videos, or offline would be like books. Once you read that, you have to put the words, you have to put the author's words in your own words. Because if you copy exactly what the author says, that is stealing. Okay, stealing words or ideas is called plagiarism. And that's just not something we want you to do. So you have to make sure that you put it in your own words. You cannot just copy exactly what the author has written. Okay? We have an example here of Hold on. Let me get my example. Okay, there's an example here in Blackboard that you can look at. You can't copy it, and you can't use their words either, or their pictures, but just a general idea. So this student, actually, this is a former student who has a sister in our class this year. So exciting that this was the one that I have in here. She's doing the Powhatan tribe, okay? And so you saw on that paper you needed to have a map and tell us where they live. And so she has a map and she wrote some words about where they live. She has a picture of their home and she wrote about their home. She has a picture of their food and she wrote about their food. She has a picture of their clothing and wrote about their clothing. And then she has the facts that she wanted to tell us. And this is basically what you need to do. Okay, so I think that is in Tuesday's lesson. So here are some choices that you can choose, and here are some sites, okay? Here's how to make a PowerPoint. You probably will need help from an older brother or sister or a parent, but it's a good skill to learn when you're young. I forgot to put a new math lesson on Tuesday, so I decided that I wouldn't go back in because you have so much reading and writing this week that I thought one day off of a big math lesson is probably not going to hurt you. So on Tuesday, all you have to do is practice skip counting and do one quick mathletics thing. Then you have to read 2 more chapters. Remember, you have one of those chapters, the odd one, you have to write the illustration for. You're going to take your vocabulary quiz in Blackboard, and then you're going to take a comprehension quiz in Blackboard. Remember, all the quizzes in Blackboard, you scroll up and then you find them. Let's see. On Wednesday, you have a big reading test. So on Wednesday, we're not going to read Mr. Popper at all, but you're going to go into ConnectEd and you're going to take a big reading test. It has 40 questions, okay? That's a lot, but it's not more than your it's not more than we had on NWA, so it shouldn't be that big a deal, and they shouldn't be that hard, okay? But it does show me how well you're reading and how much you learned about the items that we read about and learned about in reading, like what is a biography and what is an autobiography and what is expository and all that good stuff over the last 5 weeks. So I know it's long, but just make sure you have a snack or something before and you can do it. Okay, you can skip question 41 and then you can watch this video and it will talk about how to write the answer to the question for 41, which we'll do on paper, and you have 2 days to do that. Okay, so this week is a lot of reading, a lot of writing, not a lot of math. So you have a math test on Thursday, so it should be really fast. So it should be a really light math week. There's no spelling this week. This is every 6 weeks we have no spelling, so you're not missing it, no spelling. Unless you are in my special reading class, then you do have spelling. Other than that, I think that is it. So I'm sorry Blackboard was not working, but I wanted to get this to you so that you can use it to get your work done for today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to send me an email.